Good evening, everyone. I'd like to begin by just thanking our commissioners as well as thanking staff for making a modest adjustment to everybody's schedule. We are coming to you tonight on Wednesday instead of our traditional Thursday. So again, thank you for making those adjustments. Tonight we will call the Planning Policy Commission to order for this special October 18th meeting at 6:36 p.m. Valerie, I believe we do, but do we have a quorum this evening?
Yes, we do, Chair.
Thank you. We're going to begin with approving, I hope we're going to approve some minutes. Have all of you been able to read and go over the September 14th meeting minutes? Any concerns? All right. Those meeting minutes are approved. And now our next item of business is public comment.
Chair Voice, we actually have two sets of minutes for tonight's meeting. They might be missing from the script.
Oh, I apologize.
The first one's for May 31st. That's for the Title 18 special meeting that occurred, where
was for
we
the
brought
party.
together all the commissions. So we're just now bringing that, basically those minutes back for approval.
All right, so as Stephen noticed, you said May? I have it as July 13th, right?
May 31st was the date for the special event.
Okay. Has everybody seen the May 31st meeting minute? Did everybody have a good time? Okay, those meeting minutes are approved. Now we will begin with public comment, and we will hold this at this time, and this is for general public comments for the good of the Planning Policy Commission. Valerie, has anybody signed up virtually to make any comments this evening?
Nope, no one has signed up.
Okay. Well, thank you. So we will leave that. And we're going to jump ahead into our regular business. And the first item under regular business is a follow-up on the housing element for the comprehensive plan periodic update. And Kristen Leeson, our senior planner, will be presenting tonight. So Kristen, if you are ready, the floor is yours.
There we go. I am ready. I'm Kristen Leeson, Senior Planner with Community Planning and Development. And tonight we're talking for a third time about the housing element for the Comprehensive Plan Periodic Update. So we took this, we brought it to you. You requested changes, we made those changes, and then we took it to the Planning, Development, and Environment Committee, Council Committee. And they had a couple of questions that they wanted us to come back to you with. They also made some suggested changes that are shown in your packet. They're highlighted in there with who did it. And so we're going to go over the questions tonight that they asked us to address. So the first question is, do the proposed amendments to H Policy C6 address PDE's concern about prioritization? Oops, this is a little out of order. The second question is there any additional policy language needed to address potential conflict between House Bill 1110, which, if you may recall, is the one that requires us to allow 2 units and up to 4 units if there's an affordable unit there on site, and the strategic plan goal of retaining neighborhood and character and charm. So, Council wants to know how to prioritize. So our first discussion on this was, because prioritize shows up a few times, right? Not just in the housing element, but in the comprehensive plan. And the first discussion we had was, well, what exactly do you mean by prioritize? And I said, well, it means to bring to the top. And I said, well, yes, but what do you mean by that? And when we're looking at different things in the element, what do you mean by that? And honestly, it means different things in different scenarios. So you've got a budget. It means a different thing when you're looking at a budget. Or you have a land use element. It means different things there when you're trying. It's different situations. So in this case, there are policies that say things like prioritize this, and I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's in this element, using land use regulations, incentives, and programs. When you use programs to bring those things to the top. But this one policy in particular was a little harder to do. Here it is. It's long. We made an attempt to kind of change it. And it says, everything that's underlined is what we changed. And it's prioritize affordable housing on surplus city-owned land zoned for residential use, with a preference for housing for low income and and extremely low income households, populations with special needs, and others with disproportionately greater housing needs. Consider projects that promote access to opportunity, anti-displacement, and wealth building for Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities. So it kind of spelled out what you're looking for there, but I don't know if it's still, and this is where I need your input, we need your input, is does it get to a suggestion of how to prioritize or what to prioritize on surplus land when it's zoned for residential use? You want me to keep going, or do you want to talk about it now?
We can stop here. Does anyone have any thoughts? Please, Commissioner Kennedy.
Commissioner Kennedy. So this was one of the ones that I highlighted and went, huh? My first thought being, will we consider anything? It was the consider projects that. And I thought, don't we always consider projects? This seems a little toothless because we always consider things. So I don't know that this language reads quite like we want it to. No, we could say support projects. There's a little more of an action verb there than consider them. So I was a little confused by this. And then I wasn't clear on the anti-displacement part.
Okay.
I wasn't, that just sort of was plopped in there and I was like, I just put question mark.
Okay, I think that's if it will address an anti-displacement situation. So if some housing is going away, if we have surplus property that can help house people that are being displaced, then let's consider using this land for that.
Right. Well, it's supposed to solve displacement.
Pardon me?
We want it to solve a displacement.
Yes, to
issue.
solve a displacement
It says
problem.
anti-displacement. It just sort of says, consider projects that promote access to opportunity, anti-displacement, and wealth building. It reads funny.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Anything else? Commissioner Smollett?
Yeah, I think it reads well, but I think you did bring up a point, Commissioner Kennedy, about consider, possibly making that a little bit more actionable. You know, because consider is, I mean, I consider this per se, but it's may not be actionable. Please.
So consider is not in here. It used to be in here.
Okay.
And we took it out.
Okay.
I think, correct me if I'm, Commissioner Kennedy, didn't it used to say consider prioritizing?
No, I think what we're looking at, Kristen, is down on the second sentence. It
Oh,
starts
you're
with
right. I'm
consider
sorry. I was
projects.
thinking consider's not in here. You're right. It's in the
Yeah.
second sentence. I apologize.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I get what it says, promote access to opportunity as well as anti-displacement. So it's to keep individuals or families from being displaced with that anti piece and whatnot. So I'm fine.
Okay, I'm going to be the contrarian. Commissioner Voice. So earlier, Kristen, you made a great comment because we were talking about prioritize. And you had mentioned like the city when they're using vacant land, when we sell it or what we decide to do with it. So priority doesn't necessarily mean if you had a capital facility that needs to be built, that could definitely take precedence, right? I mean,
Right.
That would take top priority.
Right.
So I kind of agree with Commissioner Kennedy. I actually have support down here myself.
Okay.
Support or allow or promote might be better than prioritize. But there's two things, and I'm just wondering, and again, commissioners, please feel free to jump into this. One thing that I noticed, and again, is I'm thinking, why don't you just stop it right after residential use? And the reason being, after residential use, because you mentioned low income and extremely low income, those are mentioned in different policies. And then as well as consider the projects that promote opportunity displacement, BIPOC, those are already mentioned in policies HX2 and HX3. And the thing that I have a problem with isn't that. But when you're talking about affordable housing, it's not something we've succeeded at all. And now you're adding more stipulations onto it. If the city was winning or doing a good job with affordable housing, I would say add the second piece there. But because it's been a regional failure, been a national failure to build enough affordable housing, to me, it just reads like another stipulation. I don't know if anybody else saw it that way. That's the way I kind of see it. Commissioner Sweattick?
Yeah, I mean, of course, we have to fix the problems with how it's going right now with implementing some of these policies. But I think adding to it actually helps out too as well. And also that at least you'll have more areas to be able to reference this. And then maybe could be some clarification, the difference between this policy, C6, and the other policy that Commissioner Voice mentioned as well, please. It's more so a question, like the difference between what we're saying here as opposed to what we're saying elsewhere, per se.
I think the only difference between Commissioner Smueta and I is I don't know if it's an implementation problem. It really has been not much of it really hasn't taken off at all. Affordable housing is the biggest problem we've have here in the King County, again, Washington Nationals. We just don't have enough housing. So that's my concern. Commissioner Smueta, and would anyone else like to comment? And then I don't know if Kristen has enough on this to take back to the lab and come up with something, but I want to make sure everybody gets an opportunity before we keep moving.
Not quite. So if you all are the deciding body,
Okay.
and we come to you and we say we have 2 pieces of affordable land or of surplus land that happen to be zoned for residential use, what would you look at to help you decide whether it should be used for affordable housing or a park? I'm just giving you those 2. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I would, given what Commissioner Voice just stated, that it hasn't been implemented because there's not enough housing per se, I would actually prioritize affordable housing in the sense that it looks like even though there may not be as much supply for the general population, there's essentially minimal to no supply for the population that needs affordable housing. So I would prioritize that with the surplus.
Commissioner Milligan.
I am Commissioner Milligan. Thank you for drilling down a little deeper and having an example like that. Yeah, that's a good one. Earlier, somebody, I think the chair, floated using the word support or promote. I would be more in favor of promote. Support is implying, some other thing that might be funding or another burden on somebody somewhere. But promote goes to your point of you've got surplus land that could go in a particular direction, and promoting it as affordable housing would alert those who could provide the affordable housing on that lot to come forth. I also agree with the commissioners before that I think that this policy is trying to do too much, and in a confusing wording way, if you clean up the wording, but there's a lot in here that, if the Chair Voice's point, if we could succeed at just getting affordable housing, then maybe we could get affordable housing with more modifiers. So I might go for that. And then the other thing that caught my attention was and wealth building. That's implying that the affordable housing has to be home ownership. And we all know affordable housing with home ownership has governors on value increases, but at least you're saying home ownership there. But I think that's a little too mysterious when it's hiding down in wealth building. If they come out and say home ownership somewhere.
I'm just checking.
I don't think Kristen's satisfied yet, so I think we got to keep talking. I like promote, I like
Okay.
giving the city a little bit of, ability to be flexible in what they're doing, because again, perhaps you have an area that doesn't have any parks. Again, then you're looking at other policies for other things. So again, I kind of like promote, I think it's a good word.
Okay.
Since our council's PDE committee was looking at prioritize that particular bit of verbiage, we promote.
Okay.
Again, I don't know if anyone's going to agree with me. I like the idea of just striking it after residential use.
Okay.
And again, I think Commissioner Milligan makes a good point. It's just doing too much.
Okay.
But again, does everybody, I'd like to know, maybe a show of hands who feels that way, or who would like to keep it as is.
Commissioner
Kennedy.
Kennedy, I'm all for simplification. I think when you get too much in there, it just gets kind of convoluted and hard for people to really wrap their head around. So I'm with you on shortening.
Commissioner Patterson?
Commissioner Patterson, yeah, I think it definitely, given that the other policies, we've tended to simplify them or make them more concise. I do agree that this one, it seems like we were actually expanding it, maybe unduly. However, I also know that we're trying to meet requirements as well that are, through the county, state requirements. But to Chair Boyce's point, I think as long as these are addressed in the other policies, then we should definitely simplify this down. Counterpoint, though, for you would be, I do agree we could potentially keep this up to the point of low income and extremely low income households for the affordable housing, just to kind of add at least a little layer of support. If we're supporting or promoting, I think that's probably the biggest need that we may not have. So I would say maybe keep that part, but the rest, as long as it's addressed in other policies, I'm in alignment on reducing it.
Yeah, I think the only reason I like I said, I differ a little is just because there's workforce housing. There's all sort of affordable housing that we need, and again, we just have not succeeded. So, Commissioner Milligan, they just seem like modifiers on top of more modifiers for something we're not even getting a passing grade on yet. But okay, Commissioner Smueta.
Oh, yeah. I'm not in full agreement. I mean, I look at the word prioritize, and that's numerical, so it's a little bit more actionable than support or promote. When you prioritize something, you move it up the list. And also, that's how I see, in that sense, that being more actionable than any other word that would be utilized. Now, I guess a question would be, and this may be me not fully reading all the other policies, but this is directly related to surplus land. So do we talk about surplus land elsewhere? And being able to utilize that for this affordable housing. If not, I would say that this is adding definition to that or just that.
I don't think that we do. Capital facilities, does it? No. In parks, do you know? I don't think it does in parks. Oh, that's right, you're doing it.
Parks is in the process of updating their goals and policies, so they could, but at the moment, I don't
Okay.
believe so.
Okay.
So I think that answers that question about, hey, this isn't necessarily discussed elsewhere. The elements may be for other elements, but it's not per se for surplus land. So I'm in agreement that this should actually stay as is, maybe modification to some of the words, but I'm all for keeping it.
Okay, so let's show of hands. Who's comfortable with changing the word prioritize to promote?
Okay.
Good enough?
I have a consensus.
Right, and who's, since I mentioned it, I'll just say who's in support of striking everything after, and I'll even meet Commissioner Patterson in the middle, after low income.
Okay. Just to be clear, after low income or extremely low income? Sorry.
That's okay, that's, extremely? Okay, I'm getting nods, so
Extremely.
gonna
Okay.
meet my commissioners in the middle, extremely low income.
Okay. That was a good discussion. Thank you.
Mr. Milligan?
Commissioner Milligan, was there any need to look at whether home, it says wealth building, but I think what they really mean is home ownership. Is there any reason to look at where it says promote affordable housing on surplus land, to say promote affordable home ownership? Is there any reason to look at that? Where I was peeling back and now I'm adding back on, but
For me, and we can have a quick discussion while we're having a sidebar. To me, like I said, I don't see us even getting a passing grade right now, and I think what you said makes a lot of sense to me. It's kind of along the lines, you're adding modifiers on things we're not even succeeding at. If in 5 years they came back and said our affordable housing has been tremendous with the help of King County and with the state, and we're seeing movement in the positive direction, then I would say come back and let's look at it. But right now, it's abject failure.
I apologize. We had a sidebar. Was there a question directed to me that I need? Okay. And also, what we were talking about is that King County, this is one of their requirements. We already had the, sort of prioritize it or use it as surplus land for affordable housing. The county says prioritize affordable housing on, through resources such as surplus lands. And so because they used the word prioritize, we're going to throw promote in there. They may change it back, but we'll try it and see what happens. They don't always reject us. All right. So question 2 is additional policy language, I'm sorry, are you ready? You're ready to move on?
Yes.
Okay. Is additional policy language needed to address potential conflict between House Bill 1110 and strategic plan goal of retaining neighborhood character and charm? So that's the council's concern, or PDE's concern, is that there is potential conflict between those two things. So, okay, but we have policies that say adopt regulations that provide for and maintain the district characteristics and scale established in residential neighborhoods. And for House Bill 1110, allow and promote a variety of housing types and lot sizes in zones that allow residential development, including but not limited to accessory dwelling units, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, cottage housing, and courtyard housing. House Bill 1110 says, I told you this one, at least 2 housing units per lot, zoned for residential uses up to 4 units per lot if one of the units is affordable, and allow for at least 6 of the 9 types of middle housing, which is why we listed those 6, but we don't have to. Strategic plan, because that might be too much information. Strategic plan, growth and development, number 1, says neighborhoods can retain their charm and distinctive character, pattern, and setting that includes both built and natural environments. So our discussion with planning, and just PDE for now, planning, development, environment, with the committee was that they wanted to get into depth on how this is going to happen and address it through the comprehensive plan on how this is going to happen. But really when that will take place is when we update the development code, the Title 18 land use code. And that's when you go through, and that's why I gave you samples, and that it'll say, that you can tell down here, this yellow piece right here, what that is showing is sort of the building envelope. That is what could go there even if it's just a single family house. So you can make things fit into that existing envelope. In Old Town, the maximum height, the regulations can't be more stringent than single family, whatever's in place. So the regulations in Old Town say that the maximum height for a single family house or for a duplex is 25 feet. So anything that came into that area couldn't go above 25 feet in height. Another example, and this one has 6 units, this was why I showed it. Oh no, this was a courtyard housing using 4 units. And you have the overview right there, jumpy, and then 2 side views to show how it sort of blends in with everything else. So, back to question 2, I apologize. a little out of order. I messed it up when I got here. But question 2, we could address that one. So is there additional policy language that you think is needed to address any potential conflicts between those two issues? Is, you know, one of the questions that came up committee is preserving scale. Is that our priority? So let me go back here. There we go.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Right,
Commissioner Milligan.
could you put up the policy language for
Yes.
H6? I just can't find it quick.
And it could be amending these two policies. It could be adding another one.
Commissioner Samuel.
Would this be for new development or changes to existing lots?
Both.
Both.
Because you could add on, you might remember in Kirkland, there was a house where they added on a house to it and then another unit in the back.
Yes.
And that was
yeah.
all new, but you could do that to an existing. I have an example of one where they've done that to an existing building.
Okay, and this could be driven by a homeowner or by a developer.
Correct.
Okay.
Commissioner Milligan, I'll start off by saying that I don't think the conflict is with the housing density or adopting the ability to have ADUs or even 4 units on the lot. Your illustration in the packet that you showed a minute ago that showed what could be built today is what I've always worried about with, we have something that says maintain neighborhood character, and yet we would allow a large building that would fill a lot and have, for instance, neighborhood character. Some of the definitions that I would think of would be building height, setback from the street, distance from the neighboring home. Some of those elements don't seem to be in our regulations that implement the policy that says to maintain neighborhood character. If we had those and allowed buildings of scale, for instance, on your top illustration where there are 2 very large homes in the front and then 2 smaller homes in the back, if we had regulations that demonstrated maintaining neighborhood character, you could have 4 smaller scaled units on a lot and the neighborhood character would be maintained. It's the 2 big houses in the front that are a problem. Just my opinion. That's where I think, I don't think this is where it goes wrong. I think it goes wrong with reducing setbacks from street front, neighboring sides, building height, all that.
Just to be clear, those are 2 duplexes in the front. So it's 4 units in the front and 2 garages in the back.
Yeah, it's the scale of the
Yeah.
building. Thank you very much. Thank you for clarifying.
No, and thank you, Commissioner Milligan. Chair Voice here, and that's funny because she was looking at this, your illustration, and your illustration shows no trees on the property. They show much more impervious surface, and they show 2 large driveways. So I think to Commissioner Milligan's point, yeah, it's really more of a scale thing. I don't think it's the density, but you're probably going to need some type of confliction policy that kind of comments on all of that. But it is funny because even your illustrations from Colorado show that they're definitely not maintaining the character of the neighborhood. Commissioner Milligan.
So where does that live that allows these, the yellow scaled illustration that what is allowed in today's code or regulation?
It's entitled 18.
That's entitled
And our
18.
light, yes.
So we missed our opportunity to fix that there. Is that right?
No. It wasn't even adopted when we finished Title 18. That hadn't even been adopted yet, or it was being discussed, but it hadn't, yeah, I think. But no, we just received a grant to actually implement House Bill 1110, to go and change our development regulations, not fix, but amend them to incorporate House Bill 1110 in there.
I think, let me clarify, what I meant was what allows the larger structures with no setbacks to neighboring properties or the front sidewalk, and can that be changed to be consistent with the policy that says maintain neighborhood?
Well, our current code doesn't allow it. Our current code has setbacks from the front and the back. And there are setbacks all the way around in our current code. And people can build to those setbacks. And there are impervious surface restrictions. So in, single family, Valerie knows better than I do, it's 50% or 60%. I think it's 60% impervious. No, so 60% pervious is what it is.
So
Yeah.
I'm missing your your illustration here of the larger scale building, yellow shadows over the neighborhood character building as an illustration of what could be
This
built
one right
in
here?
code today. Yeah.
Now, keep in mind, this is in Colorado. This isn't here.
I know, but it's an illustration. Yeah, right.
Right.
But you're saying that our code is like that too?
Yes. So in Old Town, they could maybe they could have 5-foot setbacks on either side, but you have older houses that have 20-foot setbacks on either side. But somebody could come in and tear that down or expand that building to the 10-foot setbacks.
Commissioner Samweta?
So I guess the question is, existing, you just stated that you have the 5-foot setbacks in some areas and then 20-foot setbacks in other areas, but please? I saw you shake your head.
No, what I was saying is that in Old Town, I'm just using an example, and I may not be
Okay.
exactly right, but there are, say, 10-foot
Yeah.
side setbacks on both sides.
Okay.
Yet the house that is there perhaps only built to about, maybe has 20 feet setbacks on the
Exactly.
side. Somebody could come in and expand that
Yes.
house or tear it down and redevelop and build all the way to those 10-foot setbacks.
Yes.
Under our current code.
So whatever, in line with the House bill, with what's being proposed, they would still have to comply with those setbacks that are already set within, I guess, Title 18.
Correct. And we're trying to figure out exactly what can be changed and what can't. We actually met about that today, trying to figure out what can be changed with Title 18 and what cannot be changed.
So in still maintaining those regulations, it's still aligned with keeping the natural, there's the natural characteristics that we see every day, and then there's what's written on paper and regulations. So they would still be able to a certain extent do what they could do. They'll still be able to do to the extent what they could have done previous to the House bill.
Right. So let me go down to this one. This one, for example, this is what was close to what you saw when we did our tour in Kirkland.
Yeah.
And, if those side setbacks, say they're 10 feet on each side. And you
Okay.
could either get one house in there and 20, and maybe, 15 feet in the front. And you could
Okay.
go in there and get one large house that fills up the entire lot. Or you could get 3 houses where they still meet the 10-foot side setbacks and the 15-foot front setback, but they get 3 units instead of 1.
And I think the key issue is that now, of course, good and bad, you're adding more density, which is allowing more homes basically for people to live in, but adding more density still within the regulations may, to a certain extent, change those characteristics that we see with our eyes.
It could.
Okay.
But, somebody comes in and everybody's used to having cottage, or, some, I can't think of the right word, how kind of style house there, and somebody comes in and builds a modern one in your block, which you hadn't had before. That might change the character too. So is it the scale that's the concern? Is it, what is the concern? And is there a conflict? We have no choice. We have to allow the density.
Yeah, and that's to provide more housing. And then this would be driven by the homeowner and the developers if they're allowed to do this.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, Chair Voice, unfortunately, of course, there's going to be a conflict, but I think inevitable. You're going to put more density and allow 2 to 4 different types of these micro units and cottage housing. It is going to change the character of the neighborhood. Inevitable, if they build there. But from what I understand from Kristen, is they still have, so if Old Town has its regulations and code, we're still deciding what is a lot. We're still deciding what our setbacks are. No.
We have setbacks. We
Right.
just don't know if we're allowed to, we don't know if we'll change those, if we're allowed to change those. But what we do know is that the higher density units, duplex, fourplex, sixplex, whatever, those regulations cannot be more stringent than the single family regulations.
So the only way to do that would actually make your single-family residential more stringent. Which
And
I'm
we
not
don't know
saying
if
that
we-
anyone would
and
do
we
that.
don't-
I'm
yeah,
just
we-
saying.
Right, and we
right,
don't know if we can do that
right.
at
Okay.
this point.
Well, it seems like there's not a lot of say in it, actually, to be quite honest. Right, it kind of feels more like a mandate, and again, I don't know if this is completely new to city planners, but yeah, it sounds like 2023, that legislation basically, like I said, changed the way cities are going to have to plan and prioritize, not by a little, by a lot. Commissioner Milligan.
Thank you, Commissioner Milligan. I just want to repeat that I think that the increased density is not what's going to change our neighborhood character. When I look at building heights, for instance, in the examples here, single-story buildings around a regulation that would allow for a 25-foot high building, that is in itself changing neighborhood character. Having setbacks that are narrower than the existing neighborhood character changes the neighborhood character. So it's not the adding of additional housing that's conflicting with our neighborhood character. It's our own code, I think, conflicting with our neighborhood character. And we should, if we're worried about neighborhood character, that's where we should look and not worry, oh my gosh, having 6 units on here is what's going to erode our neighborhood character. I don't think that's what it is. It can be like when we went to Kirkland, the cottages at Danielson Court. That would fit in neighborhood character even in Old Town with multiple units, but it's the scale, setback, space around the homes. That's where I think we want to work on preserving neighborhood character.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to the policies too. And remember, the land use code is what we're working on next. We just need to, because we got a grant, we have to do it, we want to do it. So that's going to come, that'll come to you next, well, starting in June 2024. Because these rules don't go into effect until June 2025. So we're going to have things adopted by then. But I want to go back to the policies, but I think I just interrupted Commissioner Patterson, and I apologize.
Just getting started. No, Commissioner Patterson. One thing I'm trying to understand, though, is I've been thinking about what you were saying, and my interpretation of what we've discussed is that despite the type of housing, whether it be a single family home or cottage housing or whatever in between, the code still applies, though, right? Like a single family home could come in and buy a lot in Old Town and build a 25-foot built house under today's code. As much as the 2 duplexes or what have you. No. Okay.
No, so in most areas, so Old Town's unique in that they allow duplexes by right. Means they don't have to do anything special. They can just go in and build it. So in Old Town, yes, you can go in and build a single family house, or you could build a duplex within those parameters of, the lots, what the lots say. But you can't just go in to single family duplex and build a triplex or a fourplex. That's not allowed currently.
But then it will be with the new mandate.
It will be with the new
Gotcha.
mandate.
But anything that's built still has to be within that code that exists.
Yes, within what we like to call the envelope of the
Right.
setbacks and the ceiling height, or roof height.
Gotcha. So I guess what I'm trying to understand is like from that perspective, like the difference between a single family home and a triplex with how it's built on the lot could go either way, right? Like the single family with the setbacks and the height and everything could look relatively the same as the triplex, meaning they could be as close to the sidewalk or as far back from the sidewalk. Yeah.
Commissioner Milligan, so back at the policies, I don't see anything wrong with these policies. But the policy A1 says adopt regulations that provide for and maintain the distinct characteristics and scale of established residential neighborhoods, which tells me that our code, our setbacks, our building height should dictate or, or regulate the kind of buildings that would be like the ones that are there. And that is where I think I don't think there's anything wrong with this. I think that's where 6 is. And then we're going to, and A2 is going to allow accessory dwelling units, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, cottage housing, and all those things. Great. Just fix the code so that it is the regulation that provides for and maintains distinct character.
Commissioner Samwada, now are we looking at A1 in just respects to Old Town or the whole of Issaquah?
This is citywide. Both of these are
Exactly.
citywide.
So I think we're in a way focused just on Old Town because there's a solution that we have to, or there's a challenge that we're trying to solve with providing more homes and for the constituents and whatnot. So this is one of those solutions. A1 may encroach on Old Town, but in reality, it applies to the whole of Issaquah. So is the issue, hey, can we limit it to the rest of Issaquah and leave Old Town out? Or, exactly, so can't have your cake and eat it too, basically. Yeah.
Thoughts? Well, I do appreciate you mentioning that these don't get implemented, so we have a little bit of time to catch up with some of our city codes, design, everything like that, but so we have about a year.
We do.
And I'm sure you guys will remind us and
Yes,
put
we
it on
will.
the agenda.
Yes, we will.
Okay.
And so is there consensus that the policies are fine as are? We need to address this through the regulations?
I definitely like the fact that it continues to say retain the character of the city, and to Commissioner Milligan's point, we want more density, and I don't really think we get a big say in that, so policies are fine. I definitely want to keep the one that says maintain the character of the neighborhood. I think we can all agree on that.
Thank you all.
Is that all you needed from us?
Yes, that's all I needed. Sorry. It was a good discussion.
Yeah, no, but I did notice before Valerie gets up, I did notice you had a couple other things from the PDE. Did you want us to comment on those? Or?
No, that's okay.
Shoot, like, no.
No, we're good. I just want you to know I just want you to know the other changes that they made. These are the ones that they asked us to bring back.
Okay, fair
Okay.
enough.
All right.
Thank you, Kristen. All right, now we can move along. Sorry about that, Valerie.
There's, Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Kennedy.
You're not going anywhere. We're still talking about this particular,
Pardon me?
I think she's
Section.
wrapping up her presentation. Do you have a comment or question?
well, there were just other language sections.
There were I just was showing you the other changes that PDE asked us to make, but the only ones that they asked us to bring back to PPC were those questions that I presented.
Oh, okay, well, in going through the changes, I looked at especially the highlighted areas and just had other,
Could you email those to me? And then, okay,
Okay.
we can talk about it.
Perfect.
All right, great. Thank you.
All right. All right. Well, now we're going to move along to the second item under regular business, which is the human services element. And Valerie will be presenting that for us. So please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Valerie Porter. I'm an associate planner with the CPD. And we are here to talk about the human services element and to discuss, or I would like to know if there are any additional topics that we should be considering for the human service element. So first, I want to just say that the human services element is not a mandatory element for the Growth Management Act. It's actually an element that the city added back in '97, and it's because we thought that planning for human services was important. So we decided to add it. It's not a requirement, therefore it doesn't have to meet any certain criteria like the housing or any other required element. So, so if you're looking at the matrix of changes that was included in your packet, you'll notice that all of the goals and policies are being overhauled. We're changing all of them. And it's for a few reasons. So one is that we wanted the goals and policies to be consistent with the Human Services Strategic Plan. That was adopted in 2022. And so the strategic plan really helps the Human Services Department understand their priorities for the next 5 years. So it's important that the comprehensive plan in this in the strategic plan are very consistent. So another reason that we're updating all of the goals and policies is to basically just kind of consolidate and clarify a lot of the goals. The element, the current or the existing element was adopted back in 2015, so a lot has changed since then. So we're coming into times, and then we also just want to remove some of the redundancies and make things simplified. And so the matrix also shows the comparison between the new goals and policies and the existing one. And that's because we wanted to show how we're really, or the Human Services Department is really narrowing the focus. So when the department updated or decided to update the strategic plan, they conducted a needs assessment, and that really helped them understand, you know, what was important to the community and what they really needed. So instead of casting this wide net saying that they were going to focus on all of these things, they really boiled it down to what was important to the community. So that's why you see a lot of new goals and policies, and then again, a simple things kind of being boiled down and simplified. So this is just an example, a snippet that I pulled from the matrix of changes. And again, this really shows how we had a lot of goals and policies, but we simplified it. So this is, there's 2 policies and it was boiled down to 1. So the original goals and policies are on the left and the new are on the right. All right, and this just kind of quickly shows a brief summary of like the next step. So in September, staff went to the Human Services Commission. We presented the proposed changes, which again is making it consistent with the Human Services Strategic Plan, and they were in support of this modification. And now we're here today. The next steps will be taking this project to, we'll come back with the final draft, but then ultimately our goal is to bring the full comprehensive plan to City Council in Q3 or 4. So that concludes my presentation. So let me know if you guys have any questions. And again, the reason for this update is, again, just to simplify, clarify some of the goals and policies. So if you like, let me know and I can pull up that matrix of change. So if you want to talk about any specific goals or policies.
Great, thank you, Valerie. Just real quickly, some of those suggestions, would you want them through email or do you want us to talk tonight?
You can talk about it tonight, but if it's like specific wording, then email would be great.
Okay. Let's open it up. Commissioner Milligan.
Does anyone else want to go first? Okay, thank you for the presentation, and I'll need a little help on this. Could have spent more time, but I'm looking at policies L1, L2, L4
Okay,
in the first part of the matrix. And the revised goal is policy 1.1. And I'm going to say something that I'm just trying to read the words here. I'm not trying to own a position. but the original policy discusses providing human services in all these areas, having, cooperating with regional parties to take care of a fair share. And then I'm going to add what I've heard from the community in the past was we want to take care of our own. We really do. The revised policy talks about expanding services in Issaquah to serve a wider regional need. So I just want to challenge that a little bit. Am I reading that correctly? And did anybody else notice that as not just a consolidation or a simplification, but rather a... So I'm looking at council packet page, oh my gosh, yeah. Okay, thank you. And it's policy 1.1 under the revised full policy. Didn't jump out at you or else you would.
Chair Vice, when you're all ready, I can respond.
Sorry. Please, Stephen.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Milligan, on pointing out policy 1.1. Part of what the Human Services team put together when they developed this strategic plan was identifying not only where the need was, but also where the resources were. And part of what they were able to figure out is because people not necessarily live in Issaquah or work out Issaquah, but it also the opposite, where people live outside of Issaquah but work in Issaquah or use a lot of Issaquah services, and so the needs kind of overlap between the two different groups. The other part is we have a lot of regional partners that will offer some of that support within Issaquah, but it requires resources to support what they're doing outside of Issaquah as well, which is why you have that overlap to more of the regional approach. It's not to say all of the services that Issaquah is providing is being provided outside of Issaquah, but that there's more of a tailored approach rather than saying we're only going to focus on Issaquah when we actually are getting resources, a lot of resources from outside entities to support what we're actually trying to achieve. Does that help kind of address your concern with that policy?
Thank you, Stephen. It does explain it, but it doesn't change the impression that I'm getting from being a regional center for human services. When in reading the original policy, does not imply to me that there's a objective to be a regional center for providing services, regardless of who's providing them, King County or the state or whoever might come in and provide the services. I believe this is a change in policy to provide a regional center for those services that regional or local people could provide. I think that's just a change rather than being scaled to the needs of the people of Issaquah and maybe the immediate environs. Certainly we do have rural King County around us that we consider members of our community. We're not excluding them.
Yes, you're correct. It does change the policy a bit, and that's something that I know the Human Services Commission grappled with when they were trying to decide how do we dedicate the resources. But it comes to the reality of where the resources are coming from, the partnerships we have to build, to provide the services that the community and outside the community actually needs. And so this is more tailored towards what we actually have to do on the ground.
Commissioner Samweta.
And I would add, I mean, this may be a change in policy, but when the policy was made, and I'm not sure, of course, the date or the year, things have changed since then as well, and we've realized that human services, especially when you're in such a small square radius, and if I work in Seattle but live in Issaquah, or live in Seattle and work in Issaquah. We're all interrelated, and I'm pretty sure, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the funding for these type of services are going to be shared between the different cities as well, and the resources where you may get funding from a different city, but the resources may be based in Issaquah per se. So it's a shared approach for a regional problem, in the sense that where if you have homelessness, today the homeless person could be in Bellevue, but a week later could be here in Issaquah as well. So I think that's a good approach.
Commissioner, yeah, you're absolutely correct. And one thing to recognize is human services isn't just one service, it's multiple different levels of services. And that's, some of those are going to be more of the regional approach because of the actual resources that are out there, but some are tailored towards just the Issaquah community. And so it's not necessarily one size fits all for human services. Human services is primarily just getting to the reality of what resources are available regionally, but also locally, because the city of Issaquah size can't necessarily provide that regional center approach for everything. So we have to be able to piecemeal it by the types of services we are able to offer with the staff that we have, as well as what the King County or other regional partners are able to provide as well.
All right, well, thank you. To Commissioner Milligan's point, again, that I think that's kind of, I would say, my only fear, but again, I don't think this is necessarily, I guess it is because it is land use, so it does kind of knock up on our door. That would be my only consideration is is the public aware of this? Does the public know that what we're trying to do is basically, are we building headquarters where people from Factoria and other areas can come to Issaquah to get these services, which it doesn't really sound like that's the intent, but it sounds like the wording's there that like it does kind of cover that base. I don't know if the public would necessarily like something like that. I don't know how it's presented to them, but I understand what you guys are trying to do with funding, working regional problems. But again, if it's building infrastructure in Issaquah to basically take in the immediate vicinities and different cities to be able to handle their human services problems here, I think you might run up against a little bit more pushback. Commissioner Samueta.
I think the other side of that is, let's say we're not part of a partnership like that, and then those human services challenges come to here, and we don't have that infrastructure here to be able to support that, or that support from the other cities as well. So we also have to look at it from that perspective as well.
Follow-up. Okay. Now, did you want any commentary, Valerie, on any of the policies, or as far as just, again, what we were seeing, what we're reading?
Yes.
Okay. Would anyone like to go? So there is one policy, and again, this is just my humble opinion, and it's HS Policy G1, and it says help implement at minimum one of the following services in Issaquah that help respond to homelessness: day center, temporary, transitional, or permanent housing. I don't really see a small town like Issaquah being able to handle things like a day center or temporary housing. I think we can help where it comes to transitional and permanent. I hate to pick on other cities, but Seattle, with a much bigger budget and bigger grants than us, have not done very well with the day centers. I think, I can think of 3 right off the bat that are problematic. So again, I don't see our city having the resources to be able to handle it when a city like Seattle can't even. So I personally would like to see day center and temporary stricken and leave transitional and permanent housing, which I do think a city like Issaquah could help. It says one of the following services, but again, I don't really see where you put a day center, very suburban. That's one thing I saw. And then, yeah, The only question I had too was policy 4.2, increased translation, interpretation, and culture-specific services for effective communication with non-English community members. I'm just wondering, when you guys do translation materials, what is the cost to the city?
It kind of depends on the materials. So presentations can range in the $100 to $200 range, and a memo could range in a couple $100 for translations. It really depends on what we're translating, how we're translating, number of words versus graphics, and so forth. So we really tried to simplify things when there's a need for broader translations being needed, particularly for like community-wide engagement.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not against translating anything. My only concern is we've actually seen less assimilation in the last decade, 2 decades, from people who don't speak English, and it hasn't been helpful. It's been one of the wonderful things and success stories of the United States is people being able to assimilate. My mom, when she came here in '82, didn't speak any English. And I see it in my own industry when people have so much access to translated materials, sometimes they don't go out there and try to. So that'd be my only fear. Again, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I just don't know what type of city resources you guys are spending on translating everything versus just, emergency information, voting information, things that are really, and again, that's why this is kind of vague. Are we talking about translating like tonight's notes? I mean, there's got to be a cost for it.
Just in a response, so when it comes to translated materials, we don't necessarily go and just absolutely translate everything and provide it out to the community. We do it on request. We also take advantage kind of our virtual world where we have online resources that will translate a lot of our materials online. And so we utilize that quite extensively when it comes to the city website or any virtual materials that we provide. So that helps with providing a lot of those resources to the community.
Yeah, no, that's a good point with the advent of AI. Okay, those were my 2 things. Commissioner Kennedy.
Super quick. I'll say one email. I think there's one omitted word. We say non-English speaking community members. It says non-English community members, and I'm assuming we're not talking about the British. So I'm assuming speaking should be in there.
Oh, in policy 4.2?
In 4.2.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Milligan.
This is goal, but it's in here. Goal M down near the end there on page 45 of the packet. All I'm pointing out is that on the right-hand side, the justification amended to simplify is not what happened. If it was intended to simplify, then I think it needs to be done differently. To me, it looks like an amendment to change. And I'm not saying I disagree with the change. I just think that to say it's a simplification, I think it's inaccurate. Change policy. Well, column 3, I would say change policy so people could evaluate it with that. Anybody else?
Nope, I agree. I think that was a copy and paste, so we
you.
can modify that. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions for Valerie? All right, well, thank you, Valerie. Did you get everything you needed from us?
I did. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we're going to move on to our final and third item of regular business this evening. This is the economic vitality element update. And Stephen will be presenting for us right now.
Thank you, Commissioners, for your patience while I bring this up. All right, here it is. All right, well, thank you, Commissioners. Stephen Perdue, Long Range Planning Manager. Tonight, we're going to be looking at the economic vitality element similar to the human services element. We have updated several of the goals and policies to completely restructure it, to simplify some of the language, and also align a lot of the goals and policies with ongoing efforts to develop an economic development action plan. So the two questions we have for you tonight is, are the proposed changes to the element consistent with the land use element? And are there additional topics that should be considered for the economic vitality element as well? And some of this is, the reason for these questions is because economic development and jobs has such a close relationship with land use and housing. We want to make sure that we are consistent with the goals and policies for economic development as we are with land use and housing. And since we've had a lot of discussions with you when it comes to land use and housing, we want to make sure that if we're not seeing something, that you have this opportunity to kind of flag that for us so that we can work with economic development to rectify some of that language or work through some of those policies with the economic vitality. So as I described, Economic Development Action Plan will be one of the functional plans that helps with implementation of this element. And you've seen this graphic before many times of describing the comp plan being that 20-year vision, our functional plans being the closer implementation strategic plans that help us identify how we're going to be achieving the city's vision. And then that gets filtered into much of the implementation and financing, that being the city budget and city regulations and programs. So we've met with the Economic Vitality Commission several times prior to this meeting with the Planning Policy Commission tonight. It started with first meeting on July 5th, where the commission discussed engagement and inclusion with the Equity Board and the Human Services Commission. This followed by a meeting specifically looking at job data, employment data, business data for the city, help with building with the Economic Development Action Plan, but it'll also feed into the economic vitality element that's being considered tonight. We then provided draft goals and policies to the commission on August 16th, and then on September 20th, they gave us their initial recommendations to provide to the Planning Policy Council Committee. So part of what was recommended for the changes included a large restructure. When you look at the previous economic development element, there were a lot of different goal areas and a lot of policies under each of those goals areas. And some of those goals and policies covered a lot of different topics. So part of the discussion with the Economic Vitality Commission was trying to simplify that, having the policies focus on specific topics and providing guidance in those areas, which is really what we need when we're developing our action plans or strategic. The other one was simplifying the topic areas based on what was important to the Economic Vitality Commission. Part of this effort included consolidation and clarity for a lot of the goals and policies. And then we also looked at the element in coordination with several of the other elements when it comes to land use, housing, and even the new environmental element, which you'll see in a few weeks or next week. And more on that later. We also added an accountability, results and accountability segment of the element, similar to what we're doing with all the other elements. Lastly, in the last discussions we had with Economic Vitality Commission is we introduced new policies related to the Climate Action Plan in terms of using consistent language. We also introduced a new regional policy consistent with some of the discussions we had with Economic Vitality Commission. And then we included a new accountability policy around city decision-making, something that was discussed with Economic Vitality Commission around raising some of the decision-making policies, particularly for this element as it results into action. So on the screen listed is those topic areas that are now going into the updated element. And similar to the schedule that Valeria just showed you for the Human Services Commission, the ultimate goal is to bring the comp plan for adoption with council about Q3, Q4 next. So coming back around the questions. And let me know if there's another slide that you'd like me to go back to.
Great, thank you, Stephen. Would anyone like to ask Stephen any questions?
One thing I'd like to mention is because the action plan has not been developed yet, it's still in development, as we're discussing a lot of these topics with EVC, some of these might be revisited and we might need to reword something, or as they're diving down into where the resources are, what needs to be prioritized, some of the policies also might change. So when we bring back the drafts, we'll highlight a lot of those areas that get rediscussed with the commission.
I think there's a lot to like here. And since we'll be hosting the Economic Vitality Board next week, play nice. Yeah, I read through the whole thing again, even with the other elements too. Again, there's very, very little that's objectionable. A7, the only thing I noticed is when it says enhance Issaquah's tax and fee system to be equitable. Why did we take out competitive for equitable? Seems like taxes you'd want to be competitive. That really was about the only thing I saw. Because again, if you're trying to foster a business climate, they don't necessarily mean the same thing. Again, to me, taxes and fees, you'd want to be competitive. So I think that was my only verbiage that I saw that kind of threw me off. Otherwise, I thought it was all really, yeah, great, consolidating. All that seems to, shoot for the moon, but look good. Commissioner Kennedy.
You want verbiage, questions, nitpicks here, or in email?
Email's preferred, but
Oh.
if it's the only thing to discuss tonight, we'll take it tonight.
It's two really small things. My first one is in policy A1, the city should, isn't that the beginning of all of these? Why are those words in the beginning of that particular policy? Isn't the action verb in front of the whole thing? This is everything. This is all the city should. Fill in the blank. I was just surprised to see those three words at the beginning of this particular policy. Is that wasn't implied in all of them?
No, that's actually a really good point. We'll take a look at that.
Okay. And XS, I had a question about what it was intended to do. I have to find it though.
XX is blank.
XS. This is what I wrote. No. Oh, sorry. Okay. X5. You can laugh at me about bringing glasses. No, sorry. As everyone offers theirs. Now where is it? After the X's tend to get mixed in, so now I have to find it. Oh, there's X3. X5. Now I don't even see it.
Oh, there it is. Oh, but you're on. Never mind. There is. Do you want me to read it, Commissioner Kennedy?
Sure, since I can't seem to.
I
Page
found it.
62.
I found it. New policies, regulations, and programs consider the economic impacts as part of the city's decision-making process. Reason for change, new.
Oh, I put on my notes, what is this intended to do? What is the verb in front of new policies? Adopt, develop? This starts with new policies. And it seemed like there should be an action verb in front of that. Well, it just says new policy, yeah. So I just read it and said, where's my action verb?
Commissioner Patterson's correct, is that considers the action verb for this one. This one was this is one of the policies that actually consolidated several policies to try to simplify it, but also make it a little bit easier to put it all in one place. So we can take a look at it if it's a little confusing.
Commissioner Milligan.
I just want to amplify, Chair Voice, your comment about fee structures being competitive with neighboring cities and economic development. +1.
It's verbiage, but it's policies.
You know, part of the, in response to kind of the policy, part of the discussion we had with the Economic Vitality Commission was the concern wasn't about being competitive with a lot of the cities, because we just do that most of the time when we're looking at our fees and trying to see what get updated. Most of the time it's, is anyone higher than us? No, then we'll probably keep it about the same. But the biggest concern was actual on the equity side of, is some of these fees impacting some businesses inequitably? And so that was actually why that language change went into that policy.
Do you guys have a policy somewhere else that says competitive, you know, of your fee structure, or is that just best practices here at the city?
It's best practices. So usually when we're looking at our fees, we're doing some type of analysis that looks at competitiveness. It's not necessarily because of it being in the.
That's good to know. Commissioner Milligan.
So I think it bears saying that you could, that losing the words in this might dilute that effort, and that because the words are in the policy to be competitive and equitable would help keep that practice on track when it might not have any other guiding principle. I'd still say the same.
Thank you, Commissioner Milligan. I like that, competitive and equitable. So, got two. Anyone else like to add any questions, comments for Stephen? Stephen, were you able to get what you wanted?
I did. Thank you, commissioners.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, commissioners, for a great debate on all three subjects. We're going to move now to our reports this evening, and we'll start with our city council updates. And I don't know if I'm looking at Valerie or Stephen. Stephen or Valerie, I don't know which one.
That'll be me. It'll be a short update tonight. So MetroFlex started this week. And for those not familiar, it's a on-demand Metro, King County Metro provided service that is now being offered that serves the southern Sammamish area, Squaw Mountain, Palace, and the central Issaquah Valley area. So there's an app that you can download. You use your Orca card if you have one, and it uses the same fare as if you were to get picked up or use regular standard transit. So if you have more questions about it, I can send you the link to everything or help answer some of your questions.
How's the city advertising that?
Right now it's city website, but we're going to be starting broader engagement pretty soon.
Great. Wonderful.
That's it for the city council update.
Okay. Are there any other business that you have or announcements from either Valerie or Stephen?
Just a quick update for the calendar. We have our meeting next Thursday. That'll be a joint meeting with the Economic Vitality Commission. The two topics are going to be the Pioneer Project and then taking a look at the environmental element. And the meeting will be here in council chambers. So more information will follow in the email. After that, we only have 2 more meetings left in the year. Take a look at the calendar if you have questions, but for the most part, some of the discussion we had with the chairs was canceling the meeting around Thanksgiving and canceling the meeting around Christmas. So, but if you have any travel plans that conflict with the 2 meetings that we'll have, or the meeting we'll have in November or December, please let me know.
Great. All right. Well, thank you again, Stephen and Valerie. Thank you, staff, Kristen. And with there being no other business, any comments for the good of the order? Okay. We'll adjourn. Oh, yeah, no, Commissioner Milligan, please.
You said good of the order. Is it good of the order that we're having a candidate forum at Blakely Hall tomorrow night?
Sure, absolutely.
For city
Good for
council
the city.
candidates.
Good on the
And
city.
doors open at 6:30. You have an opportunity to have direct access to the candidates for a half an hour, and then the forum goes straight from 7 to 8 o'clock. And then at 8 o'clock, we end the forum and again allow another half an hour of access to the candidates to ask your own questions at Blakely Hall in Issaquah Highlands.
Wonderful, absolutely. Well, thank you, Commissioner Milligan. That was one of the best good of the orders that we've ever had. Yes. Okay, well, again, thank you, everybody. And with there being no further business, we will adjourn this meeting of the Planning Policy Commission at 7:54 PM.